But women and the indigenous people and the Dalit people, we have to go through that basket. Again, the leaders, again, the minister, again, the secretariat, they are giving that amount to other project, and they are giving a priority to other projects. And another hurdle is we are facing in the accessing the resource in the local level, because local level resources is being misused by the political parties, because although we don't have since last 16, 17 years, we don't have a local elected body in the local levels. And there is one secretary, BDC secretary, and there is some political representative, and all of them, they are making a decision for them, not for the real poor people. And if we want to access, so we have to go to the door of any one of the political ideology, one of the political parties, and one of the political actors. So that is not acceptable for the general people, because that is the very top. So this type of basically circle is going on for accessing the resources even in Nepal. So now what I'm going to say, let's say there are, because in Nepal we don't have a huge projects like multinational projects and coming and displacing the peoples. Not yet, we don't have that much huge project in the country. We don't know if in future multinational company are coming for the hydropower. That might be another different situation. But there are some national parks, and this is the natural resource and forest resource and all the, because poor people, they have to live with that local resources. But because of this national park, and sometimes, last year, what happened, 5 Dalit women, they went to the forest in the national park to collecting some firewood and other things for their livelihood. But army, they shot down them and they killed in the park. But they were living in the near buffer zone. Buffer zone is the sometimes they can go to the park and collect some daily uses things. So poor people and marginalized people everywhere, whether it is in the government, whether it is in the political party, whether it is in the local government, whether it is in the natural resources, everywhere they are being marginalized and victimized, and everywhere. So this is the time for Nepal to write a constitution and talk about the constitutional provision for marginalized people and Dalit people and women and indigenous and the other modest people. But there was one law, and most of the political parties, what they are saying is scientific reformation of land. But we don't know what scientific is. And most of the people, they don't know. This is the political slogan. This is the political game for saying the scientific reformation. So we don't have that scientific reformation since last 1964. But still we are struggling for that scientific. So, and also in Constitution also says some, transforming capitalistic type of holding the land system. But again, we are struggling for that. So very few people, 5% people are holding the more than 37% cultivating lands. And more than 37% people are holding just 5% of land. So it's a vice versa, very, who are not tilling the land and who are not working in the land, they are holding a huge plot of land, and who are really working in the land and who are plowing in the land, they don't have a land. So this type of, and the bonded labor, and we have a harua, charua, and different type of bonded labor system. So those type of system are being victimized, marginalized people, and Dalit people in Nepal accessing the resources and services and opportunities. So time has come for us to, legalize and systematize through our new constitution and sharing the equitable resources and services, opportunities, and participation in Nepal. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Any specific things, so I'd be happy to respond those concerns and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ekta. So we have heard from the 5 speakers how land and resources are very much tied up with exclusion and discrimination, denial, negation of identities and cultures. So we've also heard them speak about the struggles and a bit have elaborated on responses to these struggles. So we'll probably open this up now for some questions for maybe about 20 minutes. So I'll go from this side. Yes, the man in blue.
Thank you. My question is for Tsering. You spoke about the forced relocation of Tibetan nomads.
Could you please speak louder?
You spoke about the forced relocation of nomads of Tibet. So my question is, what are the numbers involved? How many nomads have been relocated? And my second question is, what are the consequences of this relocation? Did it improve the lives of the Tibetan nomads, or did it make things worse for them? Thank you.
Before you answer, can I have the next, please, the man in white? Yes. Yes. And then
I would like to ask about this huge tourist development project in Cambodia. Do you know who is behind it, where the financial interests are, and is it possible that there might be some links between the people behind it and the ruling political party in Cambodia?
Okay. Yes, yes, please. Yes, the man raising his hand at the very back. There are 3 of you, so.
Today, land being more valuable than gold, we have the public sector companies in India on whose behalf the government acquired thousands of acres of land in the 50s and 60s and maybe the mid-70s. Those industries are getting killed with an eye on converting that land, which they acquired from farmers and ordinary people, into real estate, where the land mafia, the land sharks, the people in government, both executive and elected politicians, they all try to now convert that and make pots of money for themselves. The farmers, the ordinary people who at that time allowed the land to be acquired, they are in the streets. Most of them are just not around. The land that is acquired at a very low price, nominal price. That money evaporates in no time. The investors, whether it's public sector or private sector, the investors have their money multiplying manifold over the years. So the Hind Mazdoor Kisan Panchayat, HMKP, which was started by George Fernandez back in 1983, we have passed a resolution and sent it to the government that today there are many instances where the land has already been alienated from the public sector industries, particularly. So we have said that if the land that is acquired cannot be used for the purpose for which it was acquired, and that use does not continue, the use is changed, then the land should be reverted to the original owners or their heirs. And where land is meant for what you call infrastructural purposes, fine. They should be adequately compensated, and they should be ensured that they do not suffer thereafter. But where where it is for constructive other purposes like manufacturing and so on, where companies are formed, establishments are set up, maybe tourist centers and so on, there the original people must also be compulsorily made shareholders, because what they are giving is, as land, is actually their capital, on which generations had lived and many more generations have to live in future. So just as my money, if I am investing, my money is multiplying. the man whose land I have taken, he also must take a share of that. So that can be done by making them compulsorily the shareholders in any enterprise that comes up on that land.
Thank you very much, sir. Can we have another question, and then we'll give them a chance to respond. The man in blue, yes. After this set, we'll have another set of questions after this. So you'll be the last, yes.
Okay,
And
thank
then
you.
they will respond.
My name is Kamalekshi. I'm the Tibetan delegation from the Tibetan Center for Conflict Resolution. My question is to the Mr. Bhakta from Nepal. Yeah, Nepal is going through a very tough time political situation, but there is a lot of stakeholders and those who are try to strengthening the democracy. But then, however, I would like to ask the democracy is about the inclusion, participation, and the openness. So the democracy and conflict resolutions are the side of our coin. So what your organization have done to create a situation or an environment where all the stakeholders come together and try to find a better solution for the current crisis in Nepal?
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll have the speakers answer the questions now.
The figures, the exact figures of how many Tibetans have been relocated, as we know, information is very difficult to obtain from Tibet because of the Chinese government censorship. But then what we have seen from the official Chinese government reports is that the government has actually planned to end the nomadic lifestyle on the Tibetan plateau by 2013. It's gone, but we still don't know whether they have achieved their target. But we have to also remember that, you know, when policies are being implemented in Tibet, it's never uniform, because the government is still experimenting, because there's lots of resistance from the local communities. So it's more like, you know, pilot projects here, and, you know, something a variation of what the central government have introduced. You know, these laws have different variations on the local levels. But what we have seen from the official reports is that, for instance, in Tibet Autonomous Region, now this is less than half of the total area size of the Tibet Autonomous Region. When we talk about Tibet Autonomous Region, it's 1.2 square million kilometers. So within that, we have, the Chinese government actually announced in 2012 that they have already resettled or relocated a total of over 2 million Tibetans in the Tibet Autonomous Region, which means that it's more than half of the total population of the Tibet Autonomous Region, because according to the 2010 census data of the People's Republic of China, the total population in the Tibet Autonomous Region is little over 3 million. So you can well imagine, you know, the numbers. And also outside the Tibet Autonomous Regions, we also have Tibetan areas, other Tibetan autonomous areas, especially located in Qinghai Province. In Qinghai Province, a total of over 300,000 Tibetan nomads have been relocated. I wouldn't say forcibly, because in some cases they were forcibly relocated, but in some cases, because of the high level of illiteracy, the nomads didn't understand what they were signing into. You know, the contracts, you know, most of them were in Chinese. They didn't understand what they were getting into. So a lot of interviews that we have, held with the, former nomads, they have complained that they didn't know what was in there. They were cheated. These are the words, actual words from the nomads themselves. And also now the impacts. What are the impacts? Displacement, first of all. When we say displacement, it's a very loaded word. You know, within displacement, there are lots of cultural, economic, social dislocation. And according to very reliable data from academics and experts on grasslands science, over 45 million people all over the world are displaced every year due to development projects, and a large number of this figure, this displacement is happening in China, followed by India. And also, there is this impact of the displacement is also caused by conservation-induced displacement, not just development projects. Especially in Tibet, we have seen that the Chinese government has set up, established lots of so-called nature reserves, protected parks, but for instance, in Qinghai province, why we see a large number of forcible relocation of nomads is that the Chinese government has created a nature reserve called SNNR, Sangjianyuan Nature Reserve. It is the source of 3 important rivers that flow into different Asian countries, Mekong, Yellow, and I forgot the third name, but you can Google. It's yeah, so it's a 3 waterhead protection area. So with now that's a huge area in Qinghai province. We are talking about 153,000 square kilometers, and within that region, 90% are Tibetans, the population. So a lot of them were relocated, and what they have faced is that not enough compensation, and also the illiteracy level is high. They didn't understand what was there in the contract. Speaking of illiteracy, in Tibet Autonomous Region, the 2010 Chinese census data says that this is official figures, so actual figures could be more. In Tibet Autonomous Region, the illiteracy rate is 36%. 36% of Tibetans in the Tibet Autonomous Regions have never been to school. So also yesterday we heard from one of the panelists that why not from the panelists, sorry, but from Kailash Satyarthi, from the Nobel laureate, that illiteracy is a huge barrier to democracy, because if people don't understand what the policies are. But in Tibet, the challenge is that people are not allowed to understand, because there is no right to information, and the information is strictly restricted, and there is no way that people can be empowered with information. And also the unemployment, and now what happened is that all these relocated nomads, they have become a huge human waste. And that is the biggest tragedy, because they cannot go into a cash economy, because what they left behind was just a year ago or 2 weeks ago. And I've also seen from field research done in one of the Tibetan areas in Gansu province, where the government actually organized a skills development workshop for former nomads, which lasted for 1 day. So you can well imagine what you can learn in 1 day, and you are expected to enter a cash economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Regarding the mega tourism projects that you just watched, it was developed by the Union Development Group, which is a Chinese, very big Chinese company. They just one of the largest investment, both in terms of the amount invested and also in terms of the size of concession. You heard in the video that $3.8 billion being invested, and over the area of 36,000 hectares of land, which is 3 times the limit, the national limit of the concession. So to get a concession of this size, I think there must be a connection with the government, but it has not been publicly announced through which channel, but I'm very clear that there must be the link between top government to get this project ahead. In fact, there is a statistic that 5 local tycoon who are the senator of the ruling party, own 20% of all the total concession in Cambodia. So from this statistic, we can see that there must be some link, some kind of link with all of the concession coming into Cambodia. But some of these links we don't know. It has not been published, and the secrecy and level of transparency is a major issue. It's an interesting video, just 6 minutes. It's a pity that we couldn't watch until the end, but I would request the organizer to play during lunchtime. So if any of you would like to watch the whole clip, you can stay in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to?
Yes. Thank you very much for this good question, though this is the tough question for me as well. For my organization, I mean, it has a long history of working with the community, marginalized community in Nepal. Actually, this is the first registered organization which is working for the marginalized community rights, especially the Dalit rights. It has been established in 1982. So it has a good relation and link with all political organizations, political parties. So we do not do party politics through the organization, but we are promoting political participation and leadership development through the organization. And we have a very good balance with all the political organizations, all the political parties, and then we can survive easily. And the multi-stakeholder, let's say sometimes a political party is the one stakeholder, and the civil society is another stakeholder, and the human rights activists